Hi guys, welcome to this easy maths video. Today I'm going to show you how to solve a series of A-level maths questions using the Casio FX-991 Classwiz calculator. This calculator can solve a lot of questions. However, when you're taking your exams, I would recommend that you don't just use this calculator, because as I'm sure you know by now, that in order to get marks in your maths exams, you will have to show your workings. But these methods and using this calculator is mainly just to make sure that you've made no mistakes in your exam. So the first question I've got is a simultaneous equation with two unknowns. Now, you're not going to get this type of question in your A-level exam. This is more of a GCSE question. However, there may be certain situations where you end up forming a simultaneous equation where you have to find two unknowns. And using the functions on this calculator can make it a lot more quicker. Usually when you have to solve simultaneous equations, you may only get 1 or 2 marks because the examiner expects that you know how to solve these questions because it's just knowledge from GCSE. The examples where you might have to solve simultaneous equations like this is you might have 2 probability distribution tables in statistics, and they could be in terms of x and y, and you end up forming a simultaneous equation there and you have to find the two unknowns. You could have a question in mechanics where you've got a pulley where there's tension and acceleration involved, and while you've been resolving forces, you've formed 2 equations in terms of t and a. So using this function on the calculator can make it a lot more easier. So what I've done is I've calculated all of these answers by hand first. So I've got the answers on this PowerPoint here. So the answers are x equals 3 and y equals -2 for this simultaneous equation. I'm going to show you how to solve it on the calculator. If we select menu, and then if we scroll down, and you'll see this icon where we've got a equation / function. Now you can either select alpha and then press A, or from here you can just press the equal sign. So if I select equals, I've then got 2 options, 1 simultaneous equations and 2 polynomial. So I've got simultaneous equation here, so I'll select 1. And then it asks me the number of unknowns I have. So in this case we've got 2 unknowns, x and y. So now I just need to type this question into my calculator. So I've got 5x, select equals, 2y, that's equal to 11, and I've got 4x, then -3, -3y, and that is equal to 18. And now if I select equals on my calculator again, it will bring up the values for x and y. So first I should get my x value, which is 3, and y is -2, which is the same result as I got. So that's correct, and you can see how quick and easy that is just doing it straight on the calculator. So if I go back to menu, now the next type of question I've got is another simultaneous equation where you could have 3 unknowns. Again, I think it'd be highly unlikely that an exam question will just say find the values of x, y and z. However, you may come across a situation where you have to solve 3 unknowns. By doing that, you could form it into a simultaneous equation. So what we can do is we can do the exact same thing. We can go back to our equation / function option, select equals, select simultaneous equation by selecting 1, and then the number of unknowns this time is 3. So we enter these results in now. So for this first equation, we've got x plus y plus z equals 6. So what we need to do is we need to put a 1 in front of these values for x, y and z. And then that's equal to 6. And if we go down to our second row, that's going to be 2x, that's going to be plus y minus z, so that's -1, and that's equal to 1. And then this is x plus 2y plus z equals 8. Now I've already calculated this by hand, so I got answers as x equals 1, y equals 2 and z equals 3. So if I select equals, let's see what answers I get. I get x equals 1, y equals 2 and z equals 3, so that's correct. Now the next operation I'm going to go over is solving polynomial equations. Now this is a quadratic equation, and I've specifically chosen a quadratic equation that you cannot factorize easily. So this would be a quadratic equation that you would have to solve either using completing the square or the quadratic formula. So again, if I go back to the same option, option A, we've got equation / function, select equals, and this time I want to select polynomial. So I'm going to select 2. And now we need to select the degree of the polynomial. So what that means is if we look at the first value of our equation, what power has that been raised to? Well, this is a polynomial equation of second order because it's raised to a power of 2. So we'll select 2 for this one. And at the top, what you'll see is we're solving the right equation because it's got it in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. So if we input this question into our calculator, so the first bit's going to be 2, second bit's going to be 11, plus a 6, and that's equal to 0. So now I have already solved this using the quadratic formula. And 3 decimal places, I got solutions of x equals minus 0.614 and x equals minus 4.886. So if I select equals, let's see what values we get. So x1, this is my first x value. Now it's got it in the form of a surd, but if I select the SD button, I can get it into a decimal. And as you can see, I've got minus 0.614 to 3 decimal places, so that's correct. Now if I select equals again, I'll get my second x value. Again, if we just press that SD button to get it back into a decimal, I get minus 4.886 to 3 decimal places for my second solution. Now, if you press equals again, it will actually also calculate the minimum value of this function. So we've got the minimum value is minus 2.75, and we've got our minimum value for y, which is minus 9.125. So that's another nice feature that they've built into this calculator. So if I select equals again, it will then go back to the start. So here I can just press AC and go back to my menu. Now next I've got a cubic equation. So we've got 4x cubed plus 8x squared plus x minus 3 equals 0. And we can solve that by going back to our equation / function. Select equals. We've got another polynomial, so we select 2. And now this polynomial is of degree 3. So if we select 3, now we can input our values. So we're going to have 4x cubed plus 8x squared plus x minus 3 equals 0. So we select equals. Now I've already worked this out by hand. So I got my x values as 0.5, minus 1 and minus 1.5. So the first x value we've got is 0.5, which is correct. The second value is minus 1 and the third value is minus 1.5, so that's correct. Now the next type of question you could come across is a quadratic inequality. So here we've got the question, solve x squared plus 5x minus 14 is greater than or equal to 0. So I've already worked this out and I got values of x is less than or equal to minus 7 or x is greater than or equal to 2. So to solve this, we need to go to our calculator and we need to go to option B where it says inequality. Select equals, and then we need to put the degree of our polynomial in. So this is a quadratic equation, so it's of degree 2. So select 2, and then you're brought up to this menu where it shows you the 4 different types of quadratic inequalities you could come across. So for this one, we've got option 3 because we've got an equation where the inequality sign is greater than or equal to 0. So we select option 3, and we can input our values. So x squared is 1, and then we've got plus 5x and minus 14. Select equals, and now if I select enter, it will automatically give me both of my values for x. So I've got x is less than or equal to minus 7, which is what I got, and then the other value is 2 is less than or equal to x, which is the same as saying x is greater than or equal to 2. So that's correct. Go back to menu. The next question you may come across is a cubic inequality. So here we've got the question, solve x cubed plus x squared minus 9x minus 9 is greater than 0. So again, we go back to option B because it's an inequality. This is a cubic inequality, so it has a degree of 3. And this inequality is greater than 0, so we're going to select option 1. Now we can input our values. So we've got x cubed plus x squared minus 9x minus 9. Select equals, and then I got values of x is between minus 3 and minus 1, or x is greater than 3. If I select equals again, they are the values that I get on my calculator, because I've got minus 3 is less than x, which is less than minus 1, and I've got 3 is less than x, which is the same as saying x is greater than 3. So that's correct. Right, the next type of question you could come across is a summation. So we have to solve the summation of 2x plus 1, where we've got x values between 2 and 9. So to solve this, if we go back to our menu, and if we select option 1, which is calculate, now here what we can do is if you select shift and then press X, it will bring us up with a summation. And we can enter our equation 2x plus 1. We've got 2, and then we select x plus 1. And then to enter our limits for x, we go back, and as you can see, I've got to my bottom limit, so that's going to be 2. And then if I keep pressing it until I get to my top limit, which is going to be 9. Now, I've already calculated this by hand, and I got an answer of 96. So if I select equals, I should get an answer of 96, which is what I get. And as you can see, that is very quick and easy to do, and it's displayed it exactly the same as the question. The next type of question you could come across is an exponential equation. Now we've got to solve 4 to the power of x plus 2 equals 14. If you were given this question in an exam, the way you would go about solving this is using logarithms. Now in your exam you will still have to do that, because you're going to get marks for your workings as well as your answer, but this is a good way to check whether your answer is correct. So I worked this out using logarithms, and I got an answer of approximately minus 0.0963 to 3 significant figures. So I can solve this by typing in this exponential equation. So I have 4 raised to a power of x plus 2. Now to get my equal sign, I don't want to press this equal sign because this is to compute any values. What I want to do instead is I want to press alpha and then calculate, because can you see there's that equal sign next to solve, that red equal sign, and that's going to be equal to 14. Now to solve this, what I need to do is I need to press shift and calc. And at the moment it's came up with a value of x equals 0, but if I press equals, it should solve my value for x. And as you can see here, I've got x equals minus 0.0963225538, which is the exact same answer as I got here, but instead I used logarithms. So that's how you solve exponential equations. Now the next type of question I could come across is a logarithm. So here we've got to solve log to the base of x, 64 is equal to 2. So again, to solve this, I need to be on my calculate option. So if I go to menu, I need to select 1. And I need to basically try and replicate this equation. Now, and if I press this log button, which gives me my base, so that's going to be x, that's going to be 64, and then it's going to be equal to 2. So again, I want to press alpha and then calculate. And that's going to be equal to 2. And now what I can do is I can solve this by pressing shift, calculate. I've already solved this and I got an answer as x equals 8. So that was my last x value, so I just want to hit equals again so it can compute this x value. So if I select equals, and I get an answer as x equals 8, so that is correct. Now next we go on to differentiation. You could come across a question where you're told a function of x, so in this case we've got f of x is equal to 5x squared plus 3x plus 7, and we need to solve the first derivative of this function, and we also need to compute a value of 2. So to do this, what we need to do is we need to go back to our calculate option. So again, go to menu, select 1, and now to bring up the derivative of a function, you want to press shift and then this integral sign. So as you can see, you've got that d over dx. So if we select that, it brings us up with this. Now, as far as I'm aware, you cannot solve differential equations or integrals just in the form of x. So if I put 5x squared plus 3x plus 7, it would not return a value of 10x plus 3. You have to have a value of x because it can only evaluate an expression. So if I type in 5x squared, so 5x, that's raised to the power of 2, plus 3x, plus 7. And down here you'll see that on the right hand side I've got this x equals some value. So this value is of course 2. So if I select equals, I get an answer of 23, and let's see what I calculated. And I also got an answer of 23, so that is correct. So we've differentiated a function. So now let's see whether we can integrate a function. So if we select AC, because we still want to stay on the calculate menu, and like I said previously, this calculator cannot solve indefinite integrals. It can only solve definite integrals, so integrals where you have an upper and a lower limit. So in this case, we've got limits of 5 and 2. So we need to evaluate the integral between the limits of 5 and 2 for sine x multiplied by e to the x with respect to x. Now, a question like this you would probably solve using integration by parts, which of course you would still have to do in the exam because in order to get the marks you need to show your workings. But this is a good way to double check your answer. So what we want to do is we want to select the integral button. Now, and if we put our limits in, so we just press the left hand key till we go back to our limits. Our upper limit's going to be 5. We can scroll down to our lower limit, which is 2. And now if we input our function, we've got sine x, so we enter x, and now you're going to want to close this bracket, and then we're also going to want to put e to the power of x. So to put e to the power of x, if you press shift and then select the natural log button, it will bring e to the power of some function, and in this case we've got x, so if we select x, we should be able to solve this definite integral. So I calculated this using integration by parts, and I got an answer which was rounded to 3 decimal places of 10.223. So if I select equals, I get 10.223 to 3 decimal places, so that is correct. So the next type of question you may come across is a vectors question, where you have to find the angle between 2 vectors. Now, there is a formula for this, which is cos theta equals the dot product of both of your vectors all over the product of the magnitudes of both of the vectors. And I'm going to show you a step-by-step process of how you can do all of these calculations straight from your calculator. So the first thing we need to do is we need to go to menu. And we've actually got a vectors option, which is number 5. So you can either select 5 or you can select equals. And what we need to do here is we need to define our vectors. So this question here, we've got to find the angle between A and B, where we've got a unit vector of A, 2 minus 1, and unit vector of B, which is 3, 4. So we can enter our value for vector A by selecting 1. Now this is a vector of 2 dimensions, so we can input these values here. So we're going to have 2 for our first value and minus 1 for our second value. Now what you want to do here is you want to go to option after you've done this, and then it gives you the option to define another vector. So if you select 1, now we can define vector B. So if we select 2, vector B also has 2 dimensions, so it's got values of 3 and 4. And the first thing we need to do is we need to work out the dot product. And the dot product is very easy. Calculating it by hand, we would just multiply 2 and 3 and then add the product of minus 1 and 4. But you can do that straight from the calculator, so I'm going to show you how you would do that. So we want to go back to our vector menu and we want to scroll down and select the dot product, which is number 2. Okay, so that is our dot product. Now if you select option, we can select vector A. So if we click 3, we've got vector A. If we go back to option, we can select 4, which is vector B. So this is going to do the dot product of vector A and vector B. So if we select enter, we get 2. So I have already calculated this, and I also got an answer of 2 by calculating it by hand. So the next thing we need to do is we need to work out the magnitude of vector A and vector B. As far as I'm aware, there is no option on the vector menu to calculate the magnitudes. But this is fairly straightforward. We can just go back to menu, and if we select 1, calculate, then we can calculate our magnitude separately. So we need to do the square root of 2 squared plus minus 1 squared. Now that gives us an answer of root 5. And then we need to do the same for the magnitude of B. So that's going to be square root of 3 squared plus 4 squared. Select equals and we get 5. So we can do 5 times our previous answer, which was root 5. So we get an answer of 5 root 5. And that is what I got for my 2 magnitudes. To find our value of theta, we will need to do the inverse of cosine of 2 all over 5 root 5. So if in my calculator, I'll put 2 over 5 root 5. Select equals, it rationalises the denominator automatically for you. Now what I can do is I can do the inverse of cosine by pressing shift, cos, and then I can just select answer. close bracket, and I got an answer of 79.7 degrees to 3 significant figures, and that is my final answer. So as you can see, it's fairly straightforward. You can do it all straight from your calculator without writing anything down, which is quite handy. So next we move on to the statistics-based question, and the first one I've got a table with x values and f values, which is my frequency, and I need to find the mean and standard deviation from the set of data. So what I did is I have calculated this by hand. So to calculate the mean, I multiplied all my x values by the frequency and then divided that by the total frequency. That gave me the mean. And then to find the standard deviation, what you would do in this case is you would square all your x values, multiply those values by your frequency, divide that by the total frequency, and then you would subtract the mean squared. That would give you your variance, and then you want to square root that whole result to give you your standard deviation. So we can do this straight away by writing nothing down. We can do it all from the calculator. So now the first thing you want to do is, before you go to the statistics mode, it's only going to allow you to input your x values. You're not going to have a frequency column. So we need to input our frequency column first. So to do that, we need to go Shift Menu. And now if we scroll down, you'll see we've got a statistics option. So we select free, it gives us the option to turn frequency on or off. So in this case, we want to turn it on. And now we can go to our statistics menu. So we select menu, and we want to scroll down to option 6, which is statistics. So we select equals. Now to bring up the table, we want to select this first option, which says one variable. So we select 1. As you can see, we've got an x column and a frequency column. So we input our values. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 for our x values, and then we can go across and up to input our frequency. So we've got values of 12, 5, 17, 14, and 9. Now once we're done, what you want to do is, you don't want to press equals, you want to press AC, and it brings you up with this result. Now, and if we press options, it will bring us up with a list of options here. And if we select option 2, which says one variable calc, it will give us a list of all of the statistical values that we've calculated. So we've got x bar, which is the mean. We've got the sum of our x values, the sum of our x values all squared. We've got this sigma squared x, which is the variance. And then you've got sigma x, which is the standard deviation. And as you can see, x bar is 3.05 to 3 significant figures. That's what I got when I calculated it by hand. And the standard deviation, which is sigma x, is 1.34 to 3 significant figures, which is what I also got. So as you can see, that is much more quicker than calculating it by hand. Now, the next thing I want to show is how you can calculate binomial probabilities. Now, under the majority of exam boards for A-level maths, it is a requirement that you have to calculate binomial probabilities and normal probabilities using a scientific calculator. The only exam board that I know off the top of my head that does still provide the tables from the old specification is EdXL, but I do highly recommend that you do use a scientific calculator. It is a lot more easier, and with a lot of the questions I've seen under the new A-level syllabus, you don't seem to get as many marks for these questions as you did under the old A-level specification, and I think that's because they're expecting students to use their calculators. It's a lot more quicker and a lot more simpler. So this example, we've got a random variable x has the binomial distribution with 12 trials and the probability of success of 0.25. We've got to solve the probability that x equals 4, probability that x is less than 5, and the probability that x is greater than or equal to 7. So the first thing to do, to work out the probability that x is equal to 4, we need to go to option 7 on our menu, which says distribution. Select equals, and because this is the binomial distribution, what you'll see is if you scroll down, option 4 on the first page you've got binomial PD. If you scroll down on the second page, option 1 is binomial CD. Now, if you're trying to find the probability of one value of x, you need to use the option binomial PD, which stands for probability distribution. If you've got a question where you've got the probability that x is less than or equal to some value of x, then you're going to use binomial CD, which stands for a cumulative distribution. So for the first question, we've got one x value, x is equal to 4, so we're going to use binomial PD. So I'm going to select option 4. And now you can either select list or variable. If you select list, it will bring up a table. You can do that, but I think because we're only solving one value of x, I'm just going to display the variable. So I'm going to select 2. And now you've got this option to input your x value, which is 4, number of trials, which is 12, and the probability of success, which is 0.25. Now, before I select equals on here, I did calculate it using the formula. And I got an answer of 0.194 to 3 significant figures. And if I select equals, it gives me an answer of 0.194 to 3 significant figures. So yeah, very straightforward, and it's much easier to do on this calculator. Next thing we're going to have to calculate is where we've got a cumulative distribution. So the probability that x is less than 5. If I go back to menu, select 7 again, and I want to scroll down this time to binomial CD and select 1. And again, I'm going to select variable, and it stored the values from the last question. I don't actually have to change anything because the calculator only calculates, now the binomial CD function only calculates probabilities where x is less than or equal to some value. Now this is in the form of x is less than 5. Now that is the same as saying the probability that x is less than or equal to 4, because you're saying any value smaller than 5. So that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to put an x value of 4, number of trials is still going to be 12, and the probability of success is 0.25. So I have already worked this out, and I got an answer of 0.842 to 3 significant figures. If I select equals on my calculator, that is the answer I get. Now, this next question we've got is the probability that x is greater than or equal to 7. As I said previously, binomial CD function only calculates probabilities of x being less than or equal to some value. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to change this slightly. And because we know that all of the probabilities are going to add up to 1, if we do 1, subtract the probability that x is less than or equal to 6, then we can work out the probability that x is greater than or equal to 7. So what I want to do is I want to go back to menu, I want to select distribution, and I want to scroll down to binomial CD, so option 1, and select variable, and this time I want to change x to 6. Number of trials is still 12, and the probability of success is 0.25. Now, I get an answer of 0.985747218, and I want to do 1 subtract this answer. So if I go back to menu, if I scroll up to option 1, press calculate, I can now do 1 minus my answer to get the probability that x is greater than or equal to 7. And I get an answer of 0.0143 to 3 significant figures. And that is what I got when I calculated it by hand. So we're now going to look at the normal distribution. This question says we've got a random variable x has a normal distribution with a mean of 20 and a standard deviation of 4. For the first part, we need to solve that the probability of x is less than 23. So I calculated this by hand by using the formula where we take our x value, we subtract it from the mean and divide it by the standard deviation. Now that gives us a value which we represent as z, and we can model that under the standard normal distribution. And then what you can do is you can find your probability using the distribution tables. So that's what I did to get my answer, and I got an answer of 0.773 to 3 significant figures. So I'm going to show you how to do this on the calculator, and we'll see whether we get the same answer. So to do this, you need to go to menu, we need to go back to distribution, which is number 7, and this time we need to select normal CD. Because the normal distribution is a continuous distribution, it doesn't matter whether the probability of x is less than 23 or whether it was less than or equal to 23. It doesn't matter. However, with a binomial, it did matter because it is a discrete distribution. So what we've got to do is we've got to kind of imagine our bell curve. So the lowest value of our bell curve is going to be 0. because that's going to be our lowest x value. Then we need to select equals, and then it brings us down to our upper value. Our upper value is this 23. It's the value we're trying to find. We're trying to find the area underneath the bell curve, and 23, we want to find all the x values which are less than 23. So 23 is going to be our upper value. Sigma, which is our standard deviation, which we're told is 4. So select equals, and we've got a mean of 20. So now I select equals again, it gives me my answer, which is 0.773 to 3 significant figures. So that is correct. Now, if I go back to menu, the next part of the question says we're told that the probability is 0.25 and we need to find the value of x. So to do this, we're going to use the inverse function of a normal distribution. If we go back to menu and select 7 for distribution again, and as you'll see, we've got this option for inverse normal, which is option 3. So if we select 3, now, and I've already calculated this, and I got an x value of 17.3 to 3 significant figures. So my area is going to be equal to the probability. So that's 0.25. So if I type in 0.25, sigma is going to be 4, and the mu is going to be 20. It's going to be the exact same. It's the exact same distribution. Now, if I select equals, I get the inverse of my x value, which is 17.3, which is what I got. And that is how you solve normal distribution questions. Thanks for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already purchased your Casio FX-991 EX Classwiz calculator, I've left a link in the description where you can purchase it from Amazon. You can also view the link via my website. So if I just show you quickly, what you can do is you can go up to this tab here, Student Deals and Discounts, where you can go down to Calculators, and if we scroll down to the second one, we can see we've got the Casio FX-991 EX Scientific Calculator, and it's currently on Amazon for a great price of £20.39, which is a 32% saving off of the retail price, so it's a really good deal. And the other thing with Amazon, when you're ordering this calculator, I would highly recommend signing up for your Amazon Prime membership, because if you're a student, you get a free 6-month trial, and after the 6 months you get a 50% saving off of the normal price. So normally it's £7.99 a month, when as a student you get it for £3.99, so that's a great offer there. And when you come to purchase your calculator, it means you will get free 1-day delivery. It's got some other really good offers. If you want to buy any textbooks, students get up to 10% off textbooks, which is really good. And of course you get access to the Amazon Prime streaming service, where you can watch loads of movies, TV shows, listen to music. Highly recommend getting it if you don't have it. So yeah, all those links will be left in the description. Thanks for watching, guys.